Tuesday, December 5th, 2023. No news is good. Let's see what's happening in the news today. In the headlines, not in the news, because these headlines don't really reflect what's important, in my opinion. Number one, Supreme Court weighs broad impacts in tax case that drew calls for Justice Alito's recusal. Anytime there are calls for a Supreme Court justice's recusal and they don't recuse themselves, I generally think that the outcome is predetermined. They're staying in because they want to stack the deck in their favor or in their friend's favor. Or like Clarence Thomas's case, the guy that's given him hundreds of thousands of dollars in vacations, he's going to stack his rulings in that single individual's favor. They had rules implemented by John Roberts, but they have to enforce them themselves, which is the equivalent of like letting kids loose in a candy store and then saying you're not allowed to eat any candy, but you have to enforce that amongst yourselves. They're not going to. And this ruling could really damage Congress's ability to tax people. And I'm curious how we're going to fund wars in foreign countries if we can't collect taxes from any corporations in the U.S. So one would think that if you were interested in propagating more wars, you would be against destroying the tax code. So, I mean, that's something that people will have to resolve. Number two, Israeli forces stormed Khan Yunis in South Gaza, killing scores of Palestinians. Thank goodness Bibi is so much smarter than we are, because I remember not too long ago pulling out of Afghanistan and having that taken over by like a fundamentalist government. And I also remember spending $1 trillion there, and I remember killing hundreds of thousands of Iraqi and Afghani civilians. And how they actually didn't seem to like that. However, he knows more than I do, Bibi does. And he knows something about Gazans that I don't, which is that if you kill, the thousands upon thousands of civilians, that's going to make them want to just leave you alone and chill out. So I'm glad he's so smart. Number three, Harvard, Penn, and MIT presidents face grilling by Congress over anti-Semitism. If you think that college presidents are anti-Semitic, then I think that if this was like the 50s and McCarthy was calling people a pinko, you would be calling people pinkos too. This is using like social pressure, fear of being called anti-Semitic. It's very parallel to being the fear of being called a communist, 60 years ago. And I think eventually people will decide that there should be a stricter use of that word, and that not supporting thinning out the population in Gaza doesn't make a person anti-Semitic. I'll talk to you tomorrow.